What's going on, y'all? GT Jesse back with another Gran Turismo 7 livery editor video, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to get this barn find rusty effect on your cars using the Gran Turismo 7 livery editor. Now it's actually been a while since I posted, and I do apologize for that. I'm actually in the process of moving right now, and while I wait for my new place to get ready, I'm staying with family, so my simulator rig is in storage right now. I'm back on the D-pad, and on top of all of that, I've actually recently fallen ill, so if you can't tell, I'm a little bit congested right now. But either way, I'm really excited to make this video, excited to go through these effects with you. This is, the rust effect and the barn find effect. It's a real application of creativity with the livery editor. And with all of the liveries that we create, really the devil is in the details, right? And that holds true with this as well. It can be really tempting to just kind of like throw some stuff together and call it good. And honestly, you can make a pretty good livery by just, quickly throwing some rust decals on the car. But the type of paint that you choose, the gradient effects that you apply, the scuff marks, the type of rust you apply and where you apply it, all of these things, these are the details that I'm talking about, where it's going to take your livery from pretty good to pretty awesome. And as always, if you do enjoy the video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more great Gran Turismo 7 content in the future. Couple quick shout outs before we jump into the livery editor for the contributors to the rust decals within the Gran Turismo 7 livery editor library. So 1 Total Tourist, 2 Borelli, 3 Bronco 1979, and 4 RK Mario 2009. All of y'all, thank you so much for uploading these decals. They are a true testament to the type of quality and work that you can do with the Gran Turismo 7 livery editor. I used these decals almost exclusively as I created this livery. Now, first thing you're going to notice is I go in and I change the paint to this matte red color. Obviously matte, it's an old car, it's supposed to have that barn effect. The paint needs to look faded, so choosing a matte paint to start off with is going to just help with that effect. After I change the paint, the decals, the racing numbers fall off, and so I just add those back on, and I add them back on to use as a template. I'm actually going to remove them in the future because you can't put liveries and decals over top of factory race numbers. So I'm just putting them back on as a template. And you're actually going to see at the end that I flip the paint from red to the off-white. Reason I do that is pretty straightforward, but basically the rust effect wasn't really popping on the red like I wanted it to. And so I just, I wasn't super happy with it at the end, so I just flipped to the off-white matte color instead. Now what you're seeing me do here is add these gradient kind of broad strokes gradient, dirty, rusty layers. And these are beautiful effects for you to use to give your car just that aged look. Like, honestly, like it's been sitting in a barn, collecting dust, paint's been fading over time. They're really, really nice decals that have been created and uploaded. You can find these if you just search for rust within the decal library. And so these, I'm just putting these in kind of selective places on the car where you might expect there to be more wear, in the paint. High spots, right? High spots and low spots and such from the car sitting, for a long time without being taken care of. Now, this next point's kind of important, but the gradient effect serves as a base layer for the car, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to put all of your rust decals on top of it. Depending on where you add your rust decals and whether or not you want that rust to pop off of the car or whether or not you want it to look more aged and dusty and dirty, you would put the rust decals above or below the gradient layer. So you'll see me use both techniques depending on where and what part of the car I'm working on, but you just want to keep that in mind. Not all of your rust decals are going to go over this gradient effect or under the gradient effect. You're going to use a little bit of both depending on what effect you're trying to go for with that given decal. Okay, so next what you're going to see me do here is basically go in and recreate the factory racing numbers, right? So these are the original racing numbers on the Ferrari P4. This is a replica legendary car. And, so it has these kind of iconic racing numbers on it. And we're actually going to go in and recreate these basically using the factory ones as a template. And then we're going to remove the factory racing numbers. And the reason why we're doing that, I mentioned it before, but you can't put decals over top of the factory racing numbers. And so if we don't remove those, then basically the whole car is going to look distressed, and then those factory racing numbers are just going to like pop off the car and look brand new. It's not going to look right. And so to really get that aged and distressed effect, we have to actually remove them. And then after we do all of this, we're just going to tweak it and fine tune it a little bit. And we're going to move these all the way down below on the bottom layer, because we know that we want our we want them to be like underneath all of the dirt and dust and rust and all of that. So that's basically what you see me doing here. So that basically becomes our canvas. And from that, we're going to start adding scuff marks and start adding rust effects, rust decals. And a lot of this is going to be just kind of playing around, right? Seeing what works with this car and this paint, and, just kind of like adding and removing and building on things as we go. So there really is, there's no obvious cut and dry way of doing this for any given car. It's just try to think about it in very realistic scenarios. Like, where is rust actually going to form on this car? It's actually kind of funny because the majority of this car is probably, I'm just assuming here, it's probably fiberglass. So you're not probably going to get rust on the majority of this car specifically. But if this were a metal, if these were sheet metal, body panels, where would rust form on them over time, and how would it form, right? You don't want to add your rust to the car like a racing stripe, right? It doesn't need to be this symmetrical thing going down the center or the side or mirrored even from side to side. And there's different schools of thought on that. In some places, you're going to see me mirror the rust, just because it's less obvious, right? So it's fine. But in other places, you're going to see me duplicate it and then reshape it on the other side. So we're still getting like the general effect, right? So if we have rust on the front fenders, we would probably expect rust to be on both front fenders, but you're not going to expect it to look the exact same on both sides. So, that's kind of a judgment call, whether or not you mirror it or, kind of like duplicate and reshape it. It's up to you. From just like a artistic realism perspective, what approach you want to take, if you care about that or not. In some cases I do, in other cases I don't. But either way, you want to think about this like, if this were a metal paneled car, where would rust actually appear on it? It's going to be in the quarter panels. It's going to be in the seams, the rivets. You're going to see it later on in the video that for a lot of the rivets on the car, I go in and I add like a drip rust effect, right? And that's a very time-consuming, tedious thing because there's like 1,000 rivets holding this car together, if not more. So I don't do it on all of them, but where I do it, I do it on the majority of them, because it doesn't make sense if one rivet in a body panel has rust coming out of it, dripping out of it, then you're going to expect that, well, most, if not all, of the rivets in that part of the car are going to, have the same problem. So as you're creating your barn find livery, just keep in mind, there's only so many rust decals in the livery editor, and some of the ones that are there, they're really nice. So, again, huge shout out to the people who have taken the time to create these decals and upload them to the library and share them with the community, because it takes a lot of time to create nice decals like this in graphic design software, and test them to make sure that they look right when you put them on a car and everything. So huge shout out to the contributors who have been doing that. But like I was saying, there's only so many within the library, and so you have to be creative with what you're using and how you're using it. You're going to end up duplicating and reusing the same decals over and over again. And so you want to just be creative with how you do that, because there are only so many out there. And so if you want this kind of like drippy rust effect like you see going down the center seam of the door here, you can use the same decal over and over for that, but just like overlap it in some places, stretch and skew it in other places, and don't make it look like you're just taking the same decal and copy pasting it side by side by side by side, because that in and of itself, it's going to be a recognizable pattern. Like the naked eye is going to be able to look at that and see like, oh, that's just the same decal pasted over and over and over again. And that's what you're trying to avoid with this rust effect. Like it doesn't have to be perfect, right? As you're creating the livery, like it doesn't have to be perfect, but patterns are going to be very quickly identifiable by the eye. It's just your brain's going to recognize those patterns. And so you want to try and avoid that. And so the way that you do that is just by making sure you're not copying and duplicating the same decal the exact same way over and over again throughout, the car in areas where, it's obvious. So just keep that in mind. You'll kind of see me do that here. Like I'm using the exact same decal over and over again, but then I'm going to stretch the middle piece, flip it around, and now it looks like this kind of like rust blotch. You can't really tell that that's the same decal duplicated like 4 times. So just keep that in mind. Those are really the tips that I have regarding these barn find liveries and barn find, rusty decals. You're going to see me go through and, put a lot of little accents on all of these little metal pieces, areas where there's recessions in the body moldings. You're going to see me add effects that, those are areas where water would pool and collect over time. So it's going to create more rust. So, these are all things that you just want to think about as you're, creating these liveries. I hope you guys, again, find this helpful. If you do, please do hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments below what you think. And if you want to see more content like this where I kind of, provide commentary and tips as I'm going in and creating these decals. So either way, hope you enjoy, guys. Have a great weekend and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching.